By 2035, all new cars and trucks sold in Canada must be zero-emission vehicles. And announcements like the one this week that Volkswagen will open a new battery facility here indicates Ontario's auto sector is gearing up to be a major player. With us now for a look at electric vehicle manufacturing in this province, Brendan Sweeney, Managing Director of the Trillium Network for Advanced Manufacturing, and Fatima Syed, Ontario reporter for the Narwhal. Hi.
Hi.
You two are a good-looking bunch. Before we get into the details, I just wanted to give some background on what's happened this week. Volkswagen, Europe's largest automaker, will establish an electric vehicle battery manufacturing facility in the small municipality of St. Thomas in southwestern Ontario. It will be their first overseas battery plant. Production is set to begin in 2027. Official numbers haven't been released yet, but Canada's Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association think it will result in 2,500 direct jobs. In the last 3 years, Canada has attracted more than $17 billion in investments from EV automakers and their battery suppliers. There's been a lot of excitement and news, both on the federal and provincial level about this news. So I wanted to get from both of you, how big is this announcement? Fatima, I'll start with you.
I mean, it's a big deal for Volkswagen to pick Ontario as their first overseas manufacturing plant hub. So that is definitely exciting. But for me, I'm a little hesitant and cautiously optimistic because we don't have details of the deal yet. And what we've seen over the last several months is like a bonanza of battery plant announcements with very little information beyond just a price tag. We're currently in a climate where south of the border, we've got the United States offering a lot of subsidies and incentives to set up EV production facilities. We're not understanding fully yet what the Canadian and Ontario governments are promising these companies or what assurances are being given to bring them here. And so without those details, I can't give a full analysis, right? So I'm waiting on them and then I can make a final judgment.
Well, we're going to get into some of those details with you both in just a moment. But Brendan, how big is this announcement?
It's absolutely massive. In and of itself, the plant in St. Thomas, just south of London, is going to be a major boon for the economy, and particularly in a community that about 12 years ago lost its only assembly plant. So massive economic gain for that particular part of Ontario. Volkswagen choosing Ontario over, it looks like, Oklahoma, is really huge because it's great when we get the reinvestments from incumbent manufacturers, but that a new manufacturer without a lot of experience manufacturing in Canada has chosen Ontario, has chosen St. Thomas as a location. That's a really great indication that we're competitive for these types of investments, and that our automotive industry has a bright future.
Well, you mentioned the jobs aspect, but I think a concern that's come up is the repercussions to the environment, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But the why, I guess, this plant could have been built in Mexico, it could have been built in the US. Why did Volkswagen choose a small town in Ontario, St. Thomas, for their first overseas electric battery plant? Brendan?
Sure, the land. You need land if a plant's going to go anywhere, and so that land that was assembled was kind of a sine qua non factor. I think the workforce. St. Thomas is a short drive south of London, which has 400,000 people. It's near Tillsonburg, Ingersoll. That labor shed for the plant will reach as far as Chatham on one side, Stratford in the north, Brantford on the other side. And this is a workforce that knows the automotive industry, that is very experienced with work in these big industrial facilities. You've also got a great network of colleges and universities that I think Volkswagen can rely on to train some new occupations, particularly around chemistry, that folks who are going to end up working in that plant, and particularly in higher paying occupations.
Fatima mentioned, this is there's a lot of money, a lot of details that we still need to get. The provincial and federal government won't admit how much money they offered Volkswagen for this deal. So Brendan, can you give us a sense of what that number might be?
Probably the minimum boundary now is going to be around 25% of the total investment, and we're looking at...
How much money is that?
That's going to be 25% of at least $5 billion.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but that is kind of table stakes for winning these investments now. These are anchor investments. This plant probably has a 40-year time horizon.
But are those Volkswagen's, terms?
They would likely be Volkswagen's terms. No one's going to invest anywhere in North America without these types of investment incentives, and unless they invest in Mexico, where wages are $2 an hour.
Fatima, inflation, people are really worried about their jobs. Money is tight. And what do you think about the idea that our governments are likely handing over hundreds of millions in taxpayer dollars to a foreign car maker?
I think that's the big question, right? What we've heard in the days since the Volkswagen announcement was made is, Ontario has everything that a company like Volkswagen would want to set up a battery facility. We've got minerals, we've got clean power, and we've got the workforce that Brendan was talking about. The problem is that we're being sold on this vision that isn't reality yet.
What do you mean by that?
So I think the government has been pitching to Ontarians and to Canadians that this province is uniquely set up to be to build an EV supply chain from start to finish. We have the minerals in Northern Ontario, and we can use those minerals to refine them. We can build the battery plants, in Windsor, in St. Thomas, and then we can turn them into cars and sell them across the world, right? So it all happens in Ontario.
It sounds great.
It does, but it's complicated too, right? Because we don't have those minerals yet. We don't have access to them yet. We're still trying to figure out how to get to them, how to, we're still talking to Indigenous communities who are saying that, any mining in this area will be irreversible in terms of its impacts on our communities and our ways of life. Even the EV battery plants are still a few years out from being built. There's a trade-off there, right? The Volkswagen plant is going to be built on farmland. Are we thinking about, how do we supplement that loss of agricultural land in a time when food security is such a big deal? And then when we get to, Windsor and the actual operation of the plants, are we supporting the community? Are we creating a labor supply chain where we have kids in universities who are actually being trained to work in those plants eventually? Is this a 100-year plan where the supply chain is going to sustain itself and Ontario at the same time? It's such a big, complicated picture. And right now, all we have is a couple of press releases saying that it's happening. We have these companies coming. They're going to set up in the next few years. Great, but what about the rest of it? How will this actually provide benefits to Ontarians? That's a question I haven't received an answer to that I'm satisfied with yet. Mm-hmm. So, again, devil's in the details, and we're waiting to learn more.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Fatima. Brendan, just to build on what Fatima was saying, the Ford government would like to see these minerals mined in Ontario, refined in this province, and the batteries built in Ontario as well. Is it realistic to expect this in the next 5 years when this plant opens its doors?
For mines to be online? Probably not. There's a real balance in Ontario. We have the minerals in the ground, but in most cases, we don't even have a road to going there.
Do we even know how much we have?
Enough to supply these plants for a long time. I think the challenge out ahead of us is bringing the mines online, but doing it properly, doing it responsibly, and certainly doing it in a manner, not just consultation with Indigenous groups, partnerships with folks who have some claim to these minerals up north. There's also and this is a little bit beyond my pay grade, but some of the locations where there are known mineral reserves, they're really hard to get to. They're hundreds of kilometers through a bog, through a swamp, and it will take some significant engineering feats to get there and to get there properly while minimizing any environmental impact.
I think you're talking about the Ring of Fire, and we're going to be talking more about that next week on the agenda. Fatima, how carbon intensive is it to build electric vehicles?
Oh, this is a question that is way above my pay grade. Now it's putting us on the spot. Look, EVs are great for the environment. We're in a province where transportation makes up a third of our emissions. So we definitely need electric vehicles to help reduce that amount of the pie chart. At the same time, I think when it comes to any decision to really, bring us the most benefits in an era of the climate emergency, we have to think about trade-offs, right? Are we using the best technology? Are we going for the best solution that will reduce the most amount of emissions in the most sustainable way and in a way that will help generations to come, right? Mm-hmm. This is not a present moment thing. This is a long-term, for future generations and generations to come. I think EVs have been poised to be that and can be that. The thing is, we also have this opportunity to do it from scratch and do it right. And that's where, I go to government ministers and I say, cool, you want me to celebrate the Volkswagen announcement, I get it, but tell me how. How does this fit into the ecosystem? And that's a question I don't have an answer to. It's all well that we're gonna build a lot of batteries over the next few years, but how are we gonna get Ontarians to buy those batteries, to incorporate those batteries into their day-to-day life? How are we gonna translate those batteries into electric vehicles that Ontarians are also gonna buy? I was in Windsor just yesterday where, one of the largest plants is going to be built. I struggled to find EV chargers. I struggled to find an EV on the road. So, how are we actually going to create that ripple effect or that domino effect, whatever metaphor you want to use, to go from having this apparently very cool factory, where details we still don't know, to, everyone's driving an EV, everyone's got battery technology in their house, and we have energy storage facilities across the country as well. How are we actually harnessing the good that comes from all of this?
You mentioned something about cost. I think my family's been trying to buy a car for the last year, and the supply chain can't find any. And if you're looking at electric vehicles, some of these numbers, like in BC, nearly 15% of new vehicles bought between January and June 2022 were electric. In Quebec, it was 11.4%. In Ontario, it was just 5.5%. Is it safe to say the idea of driving an electric vehicle has still not caught on in this province, Brendan?
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, absolutely. And it's going to take a while, and we've got to convince a consumer who really likes 8-cylinder pickup trucks and large SUVs.
You're talking about the Ford F-150?
Ford F-150, Dodge Ram, you name it. We like pickup trucks in Ontario.
But EVs are expensive, no?
EVs are expensive, and the best way to bring the price down, to achieve affordability, is to make EVs at scale. We're not really making EVs at scale right now, and as we bring the production up, as we build that supply chain out, we'll achieve economies of scale, and that price will come down a bit, and hopefully a bit more than a bit. Hopefully the price will come down a lot, and that will hopefully happen as we're building out charging infrastructure, but it's not going to happen overnight. Nothing this complicated is going to happen overnight, and it would be really interesting if we do this in 5 years and see where we're at, and hopefully we are making good progress.
I don't think anyone would say they don't want to save money. Just to give you an idea of how much EVs are, Canadians purchase cars in the range of 35 to 40,000. EVs are still on the high end of that, 50 to 80,000. And you mentioned, having EV charging stations. Fatima, has Premier Ford made it easier or harder to get Ontarians behind the wheel of an electric vehicle?
Much harder, much harder. And I've been car shopping too because I need a car, and I'm dealing with the same problem, which is, I could spend a lot of money now, buy an EV, but I live in a city where charging infrastructure is very sparse. My building does not have a charging station at all. The nearest charging station is a 5 to 8 minute drive away. How do I contend with that, right? We have to remember, what Brendan's talking about is the chicken and egg argument, right? Depending on who you ask, some people will say, okay, if we build the battery plants, EVs will come. Like that's going to be the chicken that brings the eggs, and we'll go from there. Others will argue that, well, if you don't even have charging infrastructure, if you're actually not implementing the things that people need to make EVs accessible and to incorporate them into their daily lives, how will the battery factory actually help, right? How will that translate into Ontarians' daily lives? My argument is that you have to have a holistic approach. And we, in Ontario, we have a government that when they first came to power, ripped out electric vehicle charging stations that were already implemented, cut the incentives that were already available for people to purchase EVs at a lower price. And we still don't have those replaced. Instead, what we have is a push to get manufacturers here to build batteries. And again, my question is, how does that help me? How does that help you? How does that help Ontarians buy an EV right now or in the next 5 years?
Not to put you on the spot, but in your view, why do you think the government or Premier Ford has made a turn on EVs?
I think it's financially beneficial. It's a lot of money. We're talking about millions and billions of dollars with these companies setting up plants here. I think it's a lot of jobs, potentially, once we know how many exactly, at least with Volkswagen. And I think that for a conservative government, money and jobs is a good argument to make.
Tell me about Dieselgate.
Okay, so this is really interesting because it was only 4 years ago when the Canadian government fined Volkswagen with the largest environmental fine that any company has received in our country's history. Back in 2015, it was found that Volkswagen was producing cars that were marketed as being very emissions friendly and so forth. But when someone actually looked at the software, it was botching the results. So it was actually using more diesel than they said, and it was emitting a lot more nitrogen oxide, which is a dangerous pollutant, than they marketed. They were fined by many countries around the world, including Canada, in the billions, hundreds of billions, I would say. They had to compensate a lot of Ontarians and Quebec, folks in Quebec who bought these cars. And I asked the federal government how that case played into the conversation with Volkswagen, with the recent announcement, and did not get a straight answer. So I have to wonder, what's the relationship here? Do we trust a company that only did that a few years ago and had to, pay and fire a lot of people? A lot of people went to jail for that case. Do we trust that company to actually commit to helping us reach the clean, sustainable future we want?
And Brendan, I think that's a fair concern because it looks as if this company is being rewarded for wrongdoing.
It may be the case that they're starting to atone for that, or at least I'd hope that's the case by building 2 new electric vehicle plants, transitioning one internal combustion engine plant in Tennessee to another electric vehicle plant, and building what could very well be the largest EV
But do you think
battery
there should
plant.
be conditions built in to say that moving forward that they will do what they say that they're going to do?
I would hope that in whatever agreement that Volkswagen, the federal government, the provincial government come up with for this investment, that is included, and kind of expect that it will be.
Is there, I don't know, maybe like nervousness, because obviously we want that investment in the province, but is there a little bit of nervousness to kind of put those conditions on a company that might choose to go somewhere else?
Quite possibly, but I think we're pretty
Too far ahead?
We're pretty far ahead with this now, and this is a couple days away from officially being a realized investment where they put a shovel in the ground. So.
How many jobs do you think this will create?
I would say our theoretical minimum now is around 2,500, and it could be quite a lot more than that. If we talk about the spin-off benefits, that's really going to depend on how much Canadian content goes into those batteries. Are we, and that might be something we build out over the next 5, 10, 15 years. In the event, our theoretical, and we've done some modeling work with this, our theoretical maximum, if that battery plant runs Canadian mined, Canadian refined minerals exclusively, we're looking at a multiplier of 12, which is just absolutely off the charts. More realistically, it's going to, in 10 or 15 years, it's going to run with some Canadian content, and we're anticipating, mid-2030s, the battery plant will have a job multiplier of somewhere between 6 and 8. That's also very high, where the automotive industry multiplier right now for vehicle assembly is about 4.5. So 6 to 8 is quite high, and that's another reason why this is such an important and exciting investment.
Those numbers are very encouraging. Fatima, I saw you nodding.
I think everything could be great if everything is done right. And for everything to be done right, we need a lot more transparency, we need a lot more details, and we need to fully understand how this is actually going to happen. Because all those jobs, all those people that are going to be moving to St. Thomas, they're going to need houses, they're going to need transit. There's going to be more people there, there's going to be more pollution there, there's going to be more environmental impact there. Are we thinking about all that? How are we going to address all of that? It's not as simple as, put an EV plant in St. Thomas and all of that city's problems are solved. There's a lot more difficult questions that come with an announcement like this than we are getting answers for.
And we all don't want those unintended consequences to negatively impact those communities, right?
Exactly, and we're running out of time, right? Like the climate emergency is speeding up in its impacts. We're seeing it every year with more severe weather impacts and so forth. Like, we need change and positive, sustainable, long-term change. And to do that, we have to start now. I already feel like, especially with the Ontario government, with its early decisions on electric vehicles, we took 2 steps back. Now we've taken a step forward, and I would like us to keep moving forward. But again, I need to know the details, the plan, and I don't think we have that yet.
So you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that the benefits and the workforce and the labor shed, it's going to be spread across Southern Ontario, and particularly St. Thomas is not the biggest city in Southern Ontario. London is one of the biggest cities in Southern Ontario, and if you take General Motors assembly plant in Ingersoll, for example, probably a majority of the folks who work there live in London. Similarly, Ford's Oakville assembly plant, a small majority of the folks who work there live in and around Hamilton. So the workforce, they'll draw from St. Thomas. We'll need some new housing. I think we need new housing kind of everywhere these days. But they'll be drawing from London, from Tillsonburg, from parts west, from parts east, and I'm sure they'd love to draw from parts south, but they'll hit water about 10 kilometers down. So.
Well, we've got about a minute left. Small municipalities in Ontario like St. Thomas once thrived building gas-powered cars. Then the plants closed, jobs dried up, and they became part of Canada's Rust Belt. But with EV factories opening up here now, what should we be calling this part of Ontario? Fatima?
Oh, I don't know. The charged belt?
Okay.
The charged belt?
Yeah, what about a volt belt? We could maybe do the volt belt. So.
It sounds good to me.
There's just a lot of power there.
Yeah. Thank you to you both for helping us to understand this complex event. Hopefully, moving forward, we'll get more answers to the questions that you brought up. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.